Good morning. Welcome to the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners agenda setting work session for Tuesday, August 24th, 2021. It's 9:03 a.m. My name is Ty Menser, Chair of the Board. In the boardroom, we have Vice Chair Commissioner Gary Edwards, County Manager Mayor Chavez, and Assistant County Manager Robin Campbell. Commissioner Mejia is also on the Zoom, and a whole...
Yeah, she's in transit, so she'll be here in a minute.
Okay, very good. And a whole array of staff members that will be called on at the appropriate moments. The public can follow along through live stream on our Thurston County YouTube channel. And we have a full agenda that will take us right to the 12 o'clock hour. So we'll just kick off with our first item, COVID-19 update. Shelley Slaughter, Director of Public Health and Social Services, and Dr. Abdulmalik, our County Health Officer.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
It is day 566 of Thurston County's Public Health Emergency Response. In Washington State and in Thurston County, COVID cases continue to rise at all-time high levels. In Washington State, since the pandemic began, there have been 536,814 confirmed cases of COVID-19 and 6,383 deaths. Here in Thurston County, we've had 14,145 confirmed cases of COVID-19. And in the last week, 676 new confirmed cases in Thurston County. That puts us on the governor's dashboard over the last 2 weeks at 468.7 on the risk assessment dashboard. 139 Thurston County residents have lost their lives due to COVID. We have had 8 new deaths occurring in this last week. Since the pandemic began, 912 Thurston County residents have required hospitalization. Thurston County residents, 10 Thurston County residents were newly hospitalized in the last week. And our hospitals, again, are critically full. In our, as of this morning, there are 81 COVID patients hospitalized in Thurston County hospitals, and 31 of those are on ventilators. In our region, which includes Thurston County, Grays Harbor, Pacific, and Lewis County, the hospital capacity for acute beds is 94.1%, so very full. 20.8% of those beds are occupied by COVID patients, and 53.7% of our regional ICU beds are occupied by COVID patients. Again, our hospital system statewide, these are the highest numbers that have been seen, and there are critical staffing shortages that are also contributing to this. There are active plans at the state and local level to coordinate to support our hospitals, but we encourage people to please seek care at the right time and the right place. So that includes not going to the emergency department unless it's a true emergency, and seeking care with your primary care provider if that's an option for you. In terms of outbreaks, we've had 76 congregate care outbreaks to date in Thurston County. 2 new outbreaks were added this last week, and 14 that our team are currently working on. Again, these are just congregate care outbreaks. This does not include outbreaks in other settings. Our test positivity rate, per the state data that we have, is 10.7%. However, due to high volumes of testing, there is a backlog amongst lab reporting. When that happens, they prioritize the reporting of positive tests over negative tests, which can affect that particular percentage. So we believe it is likely higher than 10.7%, but that is the current data that we have. Our testing team has been very busy at Thurston County Public Health and Social Services. Over 800 tests were administered over the last week. We continue to have testing available 5 days a week. Today at Rochester Organization of Families, tomorrow in the city of Lacey, Thursday at Union Gospel Mission, and Friday at Evergreen State College. Our testing team also goes out to test when there are outbreaks or potential outbreaks in business settings or long-term care facilities, and did 9 strike testing events in the last week. Very busy for testing, but there is testing available in our community at many different locations, and we strongly encourage anyone who is experiencing symptoms of COVID-19 to get tested. In terms of vaccines, we have administered 311,690 doses in Thurston County, and our rates are going up. We have seen an increase in the number of people seeking vaccines since the state mandate has been in place, and because the Delta variant is very prevalent in our community, and we hope that people are taking this 5th wave of cases very seriously and getting vaccinated. We at Thurston County Public Health and Social Services at our mall and mobile clinics administered 584 vaccines this last week, and had the highest number of people seeking testing at the mall over the weekend, with more than 80 people seeking testing. We are seeing that we have an increasing number of people that are unhappy at our clinics, and that has to do with the vaccine mandates and other things happening in our community. We do have a security presence at all of our clinics now, and request that members of the public treat our staff with kindness, because they are here to serve our community and help. So we've really been trying to look out for that, as staff has been experiencing increasing negative interactions from members of the public. 56.3% of our total population has initiated vaccines. 51.4% of our population is fully vaccinated. In those that are 16 and over, we are at 66.8% that have initiated, and 61.2% of 16 and over that are fully vaccinated. Of those 12 and over, 65.6% have initiated vaccine, and 59.9% of 12 and up are fully vaccinated. There are many more people in our community that are eligible for a COVID-19 vaccine. We strongly encourage people to get vaccinated. We share that information on our website, and this week we are at many different locations throughout Thurston County. This morning our team is at the Tenino Food Bank. This week we will be at Good Shepherd, Community Youth Services, our mall clinic, and also supporting vaccinations for those that are homebound. We are also administering 3rd doses to those who are eligible, that have qualifying immune compromised health status, and we are planning for upcoming booster doses. And that's probably a good segue to pass it on over to Dr. Abdelmalik to add anything further that I may have missed.
Good morning, commissioners. Our case rates continue to be the highest that they have been since the pandemic began. We are dealing with a much more transmissible variant of the SARS-CoV-2 virus, the Delta variant. Based on the most recent state analysis, a little bit over 95% of new cases have been due to the Delta variant here in Washington state. So we are seeing more clusters and outbreaks across the board. So now I really want to encourage everyone in Thurston County to follow the Secretary of Health's masking mandate. So this means masking in indoor spaces when you're around somebody who is not in your household, or if you are in an indoor space where someone who is not a member of your household is expected to be. So that's really the core of this message. Further, while masking is not required outdoors, it is strongly recommended in crowded outdoor spaces. There are some more details to that order, but that's really the heart of it. So I just want to let everyone in Thurston County know that if you do have symptoms that may be that are on that list of symptoms, for COVID-19, we're seeing a lot of cough, sore throat, runny nose, fever. Stay home, get tested. Stay home until you get that test result, and then proceed accordingly. If you test positive, you'll receive a call from either from Thurston County Public Health or from the State Department of Health with further instructions. But definitely isolate for 10 days, and further instructions will be coming your way. And with that, I would like to turn it over and ask if there are any questions I can help answer this morning.
Commissioner Mejia?
Yes, I do have a couple questions, but first off, I went to the mall location on Friday, and I stopped by there just to see kind of the setup that was there, and it was full. There were by that point it was 2 o'clock, and they said they'd seen 26 people by that point. So I was very impressed, and there were a couple of people waiting in the waiting room. And then I also went to a event at Los Amigos in Lacey, where there were a total of 26 people vaccinated. So it was just good to see people stopping by at different events and getting those vaccination rates up. My question has to do in regards to booster shots, and there seems to be like some confusion on that, on when do you qualify for a booster shot, who's qualified right now, is it going to follow the same phased approach, does everyone have to get it, is it going to count into our vaccination rate, how does that work?
So that's a great question. A lot of that is still being worked out, so I will have more information as time goes on. Where we are right now is that there's currently approved a third additional dose for people who are immunosuppressed, so moderate to severe immunosuppression. That includes folks that are undergoing active cancer treatments, folks who have had a solid organ transplant, people who are on immunosuppressive therapies, people who've had a stem cell transplant in the last 2 years, people with active or untreated HIV, and chronic high dose steroid use. So those are the folks that qualify for a third dose now. A third dose is actually thought to be a third prime dose. So folks that are immune suppressed, the concern is that what the process that's causing their immune suppression may have prevented them from building up the antibodies that they need for full protection. That third dose is there to increase that initial protection. So ACIP is going to meet on August 30th and 31st to give us operational guidance on booster doses. So booster doses are have a little bit of a different purpose. The thought is that for people receiving booster doses, their immunity has waned over time because we do see a drop off in the number of antibodies people have over time after vaccination. And this booster dose is just to kick that level of antibody protection back up. Preliminarily, people are thinking that around the 8-month mark would be a good time to have these booster doses, but we won't know operationally the specifics until the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices meets on the 30th and 31st of this month.
Thank you.
I will add to, oh, excuse me, Commissioner.
Go ahead, Shelley.
I was going to say, just to add to that, we are actively planning at Thurston County Public Health and Social Services for when it is time to administer booster doses and how we might roll that out. And so that includes mass vaccination sites as well as other clinics. In terms of phases, again, we don't know yet what the direction in Washington State will be, but we assume that there will be certain priority populations that we will want to reach first, just given the timeline that Dr. Abdulmalik shared of potentially around 8 months. So we know that people who received their vaccine earliest, such as healthcare workers, first responders, those over age 65, would be those that we would want to reach first with those booster doses. At this point, also, our current understanding, this could change, is that the definition of fully vaccinated still would include those who have completed at least 2 doses of Moderna or Pfizer and 1 dose of Johnson & Johnson.
Thank you. Another question is something that was on the news yesterday, and it's in regard to Pfizer being FDA approved. Dr. Abdulmalik, could you tell us a little bit more about that, please?
So the FDA issued full approval to the Pfizer vaccine for people ages 16 and up. Pfizer vaccine for the age 12 to 15 category is still under the emergency use authorization. What this means is that for people ages 16 and up, the Pfizer vaccine now has the same level of approval as all of the other standard vaccinations in our arsenal in public health for preventing disease.
Thank you.
Commissioner Edwards?
Yes, following up on Commissioner Mejia's questions about that antibody and the amount of antibody in your system, have they got some good study information back yet on if you've recovered from the virus, how long that antibody lasts versus a vaccination?
So the CDC has released data looking at reinfection rates. So folks that initially got infected with COVID-19 and looking at the potential for getting infected again between folks that had gotten vaccinated after they were infected and folks that didn't. And they did find a significantly higher level of protection in folks who did receive the vaccine. I believe it was more than twice as effective as immunity from infection in terms of reinfection rates. So we're still, that while there are things that we are still learning, the preliminary data really do point to a more robust response from vaccination over natural infection.
Okay, thank you.
Shelley, you mentioned 8 deaths in the last week. I don't recall having that number as high before. Is that the worst week we've had in that regard?
I do not know if this is the highest number of deaths that we have experienced in a week. I believe we may have had some higher weeks when we had some major long-term care facility outbreaks earlier on. But 8 is certainly a lot for a week, and more than we have had in quite some time.
And then thank you. And then the 10.7 positivity rate, which you said might be low. But even if that's accurate, I just wanted to compare, if my recollection was in the previous wave that we were, the last winter's wave, wasn't 10.5 kind of the previous high that we had? And then so even if 10.7 is low, it's still higher than we've ever been. Is that correct?
We have been higher than 10.7. However, 10 is very high. That indicates there is a lot of community transmission happening. The CDC cites anything over 5% as a concern and indicator that you have high community transmission. So, yep, 10% is very high. I know we had 13 or whatever, like just here in the last week or two, but I'm saying compared to what was the previous, before this new Delta wave, what was the previous high on that indicator? Can you recall? I cannot recall, but I'm
Okay.
happy to get that information. We got that ready.
I think you had said it was 10.5 before, but that's why I wanted to confirm that, but maybe I'm misremembering that. Last question, maybe it's more for Dr. A. The students, so I know that school personnel will be vaccinated per the state's order, but what is the guidance that's being given to schools with respect to students? They have to be 6 feet apart, they have to be 3 feet apart, they have to wear masks all the time. I mean, what should students expect in terms of what they're going to be asked to do once school starts here in another week or two?
That's a great question. This year is going to be looking different from last year. So at this time, students ages 12 and up are eligible for vaccination, and I strongly encourage all students and everyone who's eligible for vaccination to become vaccinated with the Pfizer vaccine that's currently available. In terms of indoor spaces, so schools are an indoor space and are covered by the masking order. So that includes students and staff. In terms of spacing, what we learned last year is that we learned a lot about the importance of mitigation measures in terms of minimizing transmission risk in the schools. The CDC reviewed that guidance, and the current DOH guidance, based on the CDC guidance, is to aim for 3 feet separation between desks within the classroom. There are other different settings have different recommended distances. One of the key pieces also is that while masks are not required outside, in areas of significant crowding, they're still recommended. So I think that with case transmission rates being as high as they are in our county, it's really important for all of us to come together and pitch in. So kind of doing all of the things that we've been doing since the beginning. So masking, distancing, limiting our gatherings to try to mitigate spread in the community, because the less spread we have in the community, the less chance there is for COVID-19 to get into our schools and potentially spread. There's also a real role for everyone who works and learns in our schools to follow these mitigation measures. So follow the spacing guidelines, mask, and crucially stay home when sick or when instructed by local public health. And I believe that using these measures, we can reduce the chance of transmission in our schools.
Are there conversations, or are you aware of planning for kind of plan B, meaning obviously schools are going to reopen they didn't last time we had a serious, we were closed down. They're going to try it this way. Are there certain things that if they happen will precipitate a change with regard to schools? Like, this number of outbreaks. I mean, what's the tipping point by which the leadership at the state's going to say we cannot still have open schools full capacity? I mean, last year we had the cohorts for a while with basically half capacity, and we're not doing any of that in the midst of this COVID, or in the midst of this Delta. So I'm just wondering, what's it going to take for that policy to change? If you have any insight into that.
So that's a tricky question. I can speak for myself as the Thurston County Health Officer. I'm committed to minimizing the risk of outbreaks and maximizing safety while providing to help schools provide education to students 5 days a week, which is kind of the alignment of all of these policy measures. Things where I would change course in alignment with, of course, State Department of Health and OSPI would be if we were seeing significant transmission in the schools, such that we're overcoming the mitigation measures. Of course, our first step is always to help advise on appropriate mitigation measures to prevent spread of disease. But if there's uncontrolled spread of disease, that would be where local public health in alignment with DOH and OSPI would weigh in.
Thank you, Dr. County Manager. Anything?
Yeah, I have a quick question. A follow-up on the booster shots. Two-part questions. Do you know if the booster shot is going to be similar to the doses that we have received, meaning it's just going to be another shot? And the second part of that question is do you know if there's an indication that if you receive a Pfizer vaccine, the booster shot has to be a Pfizer, or perhaps, because I've heard that perhaps there's going to be a logistical challenge to go through that process, and perhaps a booster shot may be any of the vaccines available.
That's a really good question. A lot of those operational details, we are waiting on the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices to weigh in on the 30th and 31st. So that will answer a lot of the questions about brand crossover and those pieces. My initial understanding, and this is my understanding at this point in time, with the knowledge that all of this is going to be clarified throughout the month, is that the booster dose, at least early on, is likely going to be a booster dose of the same vaccine that we've received. But once again, the only thing I could say at this point is that this is all currently being developed, so that could definitely change.
Thank you.
Chair, I do have a question to follow up with that.
Go ahead.
Doctor, for those individuals that got the Johnson & Johnson, we don't hear much about booster shots or when or efficiencies. And then the other part of that would be during normal flu seasons and such, oftentimes there's advice given out to keep your resistance up by doing, I don't know, X, Y, or Z, getting enough sleep, taking a vitamin C or whatever. So are there any of those recommendations out there that can help those folks, even though they've maybe had a vaccination, but they don't want to get reinfected? Is there something they could be doing, besides the normal things that you're giving out about spacing and masks and such, that they could be doing or taking to help them be less susceptible to this?
So what we do find overall for things that improve health overall, so so of course getting a good night's sleep, having a healthy and varied diet with lots of fruits and vegetables, regular exercise. These are all good things that improve folks' baseline health, and they're as important now as they ever have been. In terms of the Johnson & Johnson dose, we're still getting the data in terms of what a booster dose might look like, and some of those processes. So I'm still waiting for the CDC and FDA to weigh in on that. But it is definitely something that's being talked about at the state and federal levels.
Is there any difference between the Johnson & Johnson and the other ones that took 2 shots? So it's 1 shot versus 2 shots on each of the others. That reinfection rate or anything like that, is there any studies going on? You're more likely if you got the 2-shot thing to get it again, or the 1-shot thing to get it again?
So the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is extremely effective at preventing hospitalizations and deaths. It is a little bit, so it's the initial study in the United States showed that it was about 72% effective at moderate to severe symptoms, at preventing moderate to severe symptoms. In terms of what we're waiting on data-wise, has to do with the timing between shots, because the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is made differently than Pfizer and Moderna, which are both mRNA vaccines. And so figuring out the timing and the safety profile of a second dose is where we're, is some of the data that we're waiting on.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Shelley. Thank you, Dr. Abdulmalik.
Thank you.
We'll move forward to item 2 this morning, which is homeless strategies update. I see Tom Webster from Public Health Social Services. Tom, are you giving the update this morning?
Yes, I am. Commissioner Keeley is out today, so I am stepping in for her. So Tom Webster with Public Health and Social Services. So try to keep this fairly short today, but a couple things for you. Just the update on our rental assistance activities. So latest numbers from CAC is they have served 1,567 households with rent and utility assistance. And they've approved over $10.5 million of rent payments and over $420,000 of utility assistance payments from CAC. Community Youth Services has also served over 68 households and approved $558,000 in rent assistance payments. Those programs are both moving along at a strong clip. And we expect that they're going to kind of exhaust their initial funding here in mid to late September. Well ahead of kind of the target set by the Treasury and Commerce. They were expected, target was to spend 65% of this funds by the end of September, and they're on track to spend 100% of that funding. So one of the things I wanted to give you a heads up on is that over the coming weeks here, we'll be bringing, or we hope to bring new items for your action to provide additional funding for rent assistance. There is a TRAP 2, so a second round of funding that we'll be receiving from Commerce, and as well as some funding we've received directly from the Department of Treasury. So we have approximately a total of $28 million additional dollars that we'll be looking to allocate here in the coming weeks. So just a heads up that you'll be seeing some AISs, some agenda items for your board meetings for additional rental assistance activities as we get through this first round of funding. Other update that I wanted to provide you kind of a heads up on what to expect in the coming weeks is you've heard about the 1277 document recording fee funds that we are receiving. We expect to receive most of those funds kind of early in 2022. Department of Commerce has issued or released a portion of those funds to in the short term or immediately. specifically for hotel vouchers and rapid rehousing activities. So Thurston County has been allocated $1.6 million that we can access to support hotel vouchers and rapid rehousing over the next 2 years. So that's $1.6 million to last for 2 years. We need to apply for that funding. We need to ask and provide Commerce with a plan for how we intend to spend that funding. So we're going to be working, consulting with the Housing Action Team as well as the Regional Housing Council to get some guidance on a plan for moving forward with that. But we'll probably be issuing an RFP or a request for qualifications here in the coming weeks to get proposals from providers on how to utilize those funds. So with the goal of submitting an application to Department of Commerce before the end of the year in order to access those funds. So happy to answer questions about that, but that's mostly a heads up that we'll be working on plans to determine how to use those funds that are coming to our county. And then my other update for you is that the Regional Housing Council is meeting on Wednesday of this week at 4 p.m. That is a public meeting, so if folks of the public want to watch, there is a link on our website to follow along. One of the things that we'll be talking about at this week's meeting is the Lehigh Martin Way 2828 Martin Way Phase 2 project has a gap in funding, so there'll be a discussion around reusing some of the 1406 funding on whether to provide additional funding to support that project. So that will be something discussed at the Regional Housing Council this week. Those are my updates for you this week, and happy to answer any questions that I can.
Commissioner Mejia,
No questions for me.
Commissioner Edwards?
No, sir, but I think the county manager does.
Go ahead, County Manager, then I'll go.
After you, Commissioner.
Okay. So I want to go back to what you said about 1277, and I got lost in the details there. So you said something about 1.6 million for hotel vouchers and something else.
And rapid rehousing.
And rapid rehousing. And then I wasn't clear if that is connected to 1277 or is that separate?
That is connected. So the state has, they've issued, so the 1277 document recording fee they've collected, they expect to collect many millions of dollars of that. They've decided, and they're working through a process of how to allocate that money, which will be coming out in early 2022. In the meantime, they've set aside $40 million of this funding to get out to communities immediately, specifically for hotel vouchers and rapid rehousing. So Thurston County has been allocated for 1.6 million of that 40 million total. So it was the first push of this 1277 money coming from Commerce. We expect more in early 2022 to come to us. So this was the initial, just a first allocation or push from the county to get some money immediately to communities to support efforts, to support our homeless services response.
Got it. Thank you. And then going back to the first item, there was TRAP 1, I'm sorry, there was ERAP, TRAP 1, TRAP 2, and I kind of object to these militaristic sounding acronyms, but what is the, can you give us a total number of dollars that have, including this new 28 million that's coming, what does that bring our total dollars allocated into the community for rental assistance up to?
So if I can do some quick math in my head, we received approximately just over $3 million in ERAP, which was Emergency Rent Assistance Program, that was state dollars. And we received approximately 18 million in TRAP 1, and that's what the feds also called emergency rental assistance. We just added the T for Treasury to distinguish it from the state program. So that was 18 million under the TRAP 1, plus approximately 28 million. So that brings the total to pretty close to 50 million, just short of $50 million in rental assistance that will be coming to our county that we expect in total.
So this 28 million, I mean, so up to now we've gotten 21. And so this 28 is going to be more than all the money that's been doled out to date at this point. That
is correct. And this money has a longer lifespan. We have until I believe 2024 to spend this money. So this will I don't know if it will last that long, but we have a longer time frame to spend this money than the initial rental assistance, which was needed to be spent in a shorter period of time.
So the scenario that we were worried about in the spring, and Keely, I think, was worried about, as best I could tell, about, the end of the eviction moratorium and a massive spike in homelessness is probably going to be evaded by these resources, I would imagine, right?
We certainly hope so, yes. And so one of the things also that Community Action Council is partnering with Dispute Resolution Center and Thurston County Volunteer Legal Services through the Governor's Bridge program. So before a tenant, before someone can be evicted, a landlord needs to go through Dispute Resolution Center, and that tenant needs to have access to these funds and be determined if they're eligible and able to access these funds. So that should also, I think, the Governor's Bridge program, which originally set to go through September. We have not heard that. I have not heard that that's going to be extended, but I would not be surprised if it was. Is also a connection between the eviction process before a landlord and tenant can go through the eviction process. They will have an opportunity to access these rental assistance funds to resolve the unpaid or back rent.
The DRC involvement, is that part of the bridge program you were talking about? Or is that something? Okay. And so that's been in place for a period of time?
Yeah, it's just been in place, really getting off the ground here in the last month. And there's still some legal things that are being worked out with the courts. But yes, Community Action Council has had a formal partnership with Dispute Resolution Center for about the past month. They've had an informal relationship since the beginning of the program, but a formal relationship. They have an MOU signed between the organizations that took effect in early August.
I'll be very curious to hear how that works. It's an interesting idea, and if it's done right, it could be really good. So I'd like to hear back kind of how as that unfolds. The $28 million, are the commissioners going to be presented with a proposal for? I mean, is the assumption Community Action Council is going to continue to administer this money? I know there were some wrinkles, and we got them worked out, as my understanding, for the most part, but what's the plan for how we administer this money?
Yeah, we will be presenting you with that plan. We're working on that now. So yeah, I'm hopeful that it will continue to be Community Action Council. We're working out some of those details. Also, Community Youth Services has also had a contract, and so we'll look to kind of continue with Community Services. So yeah, we'll be bringing that to you here in the coming weeks.
I know this question is speculative, but if Community Action Council dissolved tomorrow, are there other organizations that want to do this work, that can do this work? Like, what would be would we have a line of people asking for this contract, or would we be scraping around to find somebody that would be able to stand up this effort? Do you have a sense of that?
I think probably because there's a lot to manage here, and there's risks to doling this out to many organizations, because you have to worry about duplication of benefits and coordination, that it would be likely that we would need to go to an outside consultant to come in to help us to manage that if we were not able to use Community Action Council.
Okay. Those are my questions. Thank you, Tom. And County Manager.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions and maybe an update on a couple of items. Related to the rental assistance program, the numbers that you provided, Tom, the ERAP, the TRAP 1, TRAP 2, that is just in 2021. But in 2020, I believe we also included a significant amount of money from the Coronavirus Relief Fund. So the number, if we take the 2-year span, is quite a bit larger. So I just want to perhaps clarify that, if you can confirm that, in fact, in 2020, the Board of County Commissioners invested in helping our community in rental assistance, utility assistance.
Yes, that's correct. Thanks. I forgot there was around 1.4 million, I believe, in the Coronavirus Relief Fund. So in 2020, in addition to the 3 million of ERAP. So it was, yeah, in total, it was a little over, it was, close to 4.5 million in 2020 we spent. So
right,
that's correct.
Thank you. And going back to the Community Action Council, I believe we value their partnership and will continue to work with them. And if I myself send an email to the leadership, just to make sure that we get enough information related to the upcoming funding that perhaps the board may consider, just to make sure they have the capacity to deliver the $28 million. So we're working on that. So when the conversation comes to the board, we will have all that information before we made a recommendation. The other item that I'd like to update the board is related to the Ensign Road and the RV locations in that area. Obviously, that's an issue. We have met with the executive director from Providence St. Peter's Hospital. There is a need to control parking in an area. It's not going to resolve the whole issue, but it's an area that we're working with the city of Olympia. So there is a need to relocate at least 20 RVs in order to control the parking. And controlling the park is going to be allowing the delivery trucks to access the hospital. So I will be working with the city of Olympia as well as with the inner city transit to see what options do we have in order to achieve this phase one, I believe, of addressing the issues in Ensign Road. I will keep the board up to date on that. And in fact, I have already a meeting with the two leaders next week where we're going to be starting discussing options on that plan.
Okay, any follow-up questions for Tom or Ramiro from the board?
No, sir.
All right, very good. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay, that brings us to a review of this afternoon's draft agenda. 2 p.m. meeting called to order. There is a public hearing at 3 p.m. or as close to that as we can manage as soon as the 2 p.m. meeting is over. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Commissioner Mejia. After the meeting is called to order, we will look at the agenda and board meeting minutes from August 17th. The public will have the opportunity to address the board and then the county manager's update. Is there anything there, Ramiro?
Yes, sir. I'd like to follow up to the public testimony related to the Veterans Advisory Board as well as the meeting minutes on the Veterans Advisory Committee. You received some testimony that there was issues related to the meeting minutes and as well as the expired dates of the members of the advisory board. That was correct, meaning that what it was found online and we just updated. What the information that was provided online was outdated. So I appreciate the citizens' feedback on this. So as up to date and included in your packet is what we have updated related to the meeting minutes as well as the membership of the advisory board. I will touch in more details when we get to that point on item number 5 of your agenda this morning, but I'd like to follow up this afternoon related to the testimony on those items.
Okay, I'm just looking at the materials that were provided to the board. Any questions from the commissioners on this?
You want me to go through right away on that? I can.
No, I mean, you said that it's in the packet and I hadn't looked at that piece, so I'm just checking to see
Yeah.
what it is that we've got updated now. And I see there's meeting minutes. I see that there's a roster sheet, basically. Any questions from the board?
No, sir.
Not at this time. We'll have a chance to review this and then maybe we'll talk about it again. Thank you.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I'll take a closer look. I know we do have a miscellany of information on our various web pages that sometimes is not up to date, and that's kind of a project that I know the board is working on, kind of a revamp and update of our website. Got kind of delayed with COVID, but I still think it's on our agenda to move forward, and I think we can remedy a lot of this. I remember as a candidate trying to learn about different aspects of county government, and I would hit a lot of dead ends and see a lot of information that was just really old. And so we should just have, people are just more and more reliant on web pages and websites. So we're definitely going to be addressing that, but it wasn't surprising to me to see something like that outdated roster of an advisory board, but it definitely should be addressed.
Yeah, I appreciate that comment, Commissioner. Certainly, there is room for improvement, and we're working on that. And in fact, for your consideration, we're going to be updating the website, and that is going to be an avenue. Amy, the clerk of the board, is looking for an application that can help us manage the meeting minutes and everything else. So there is opportunities for us to improve. I acknowledge that. There is some gaps that we need to overcome, and we're working on it on a holistic approach. So I appreciate the comment.
Okay, then we'll move ahead to the consent items. 3A, Public Health and Social Services. Resolution reclassifying position.
Yes, Commissioner, you reviewed this item last week, and for your consideration is to reclassify an existing position from a epidemiologist to a senior epidemiologist. This request is due to the increased scope of work of the Disease and Control Prevention Program in Public Health and Social Services. This position will supervise staff at the public health program areas of epidemiology services that we brought to our community. This is really related to make sure that we align to the needs of ever-evolving needs of public health and social services. This particular position has an increase of $7,321 to $8,809 per month, just about 21% increase. And this is funded through the Sexually Transmitted Disease Program and the tuberculosis federal and state grants, as well as some public health fees. It is not expected to ask any increases on the current budget.
Any questions from the board on this item?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Nope, me neither. Let's go to item 3B, Community Planning, Economic Development, and appointment to the Storm and Surface Water Advisory Board.
Yeah, this is a new item from when you review this item, and this is follow up the direction of the board. You should consider the appointment of Mr. David Harley to the Storm and Surface Water Advisory Board, and that will be represented District 1 seat. That will be the term for August 31st, 2021 to August 31st, 2024.
Any questions there?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, very good. Item 3C is the auditor voucher list. Any questions from the board members on any items?
No.
Okay, then we'll go to department item 4A. This is under Commissioner's office, the CPACER ordinance. Jenica Machado is here. It's the county treasurer. Jeff Gadman's here. I know he's involved in this. Ramiro, why don't you go ahead and set it up for us?
Thank you, Commissioners. This is a brand new item, but I did give the board a heads up that I will bring this item. And this is related to the ordinance that you passed back in July 2021, where you implemented the CPACER. That will be the Clean Energy and Resilience Program, the Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy and Resilience Program. So while we were going through the process of reviewing that particular resolution, we found out that section 9, was not necessarily aligned to what the county treasurer would like to see. So we had a conversation with Jeff Gadman, the county treasurer, as well as the prosecuting attorneys, and we updated section 9, particularly of this resolution. The rest of the resolution has not changed, but we felt that it was substantial enough to bring to the board for you to reapprove the new resolution. So for your consideration is to rescind the ordinance that you passed, that's the 16052, and considering approving the new ordinance implemented this program. Jeff Gadman is here, as well as Jenica Machado, who is working on this. Do you have any questions?
Jeff, as succinctly as possible, could you explain the change, the nature of the change?
Yes, basically the way that the ordinance was originally passed, which is essentially the model ordinance put forward by the CPACER proponents, it actually ended up requiring some county resources to be utilized and finances to be spent in the event of a default on a loan. And so this language changes that so that basically the county can get compensated if we end up spending any money in the process of solving a delinquency.
Questions, Commissioner Mejia?
No, sir.
Commissioner Edwards?
Yes, compensated by who, Jeff?
By the CPACER lender.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Jenica, anything you wanted to add on this?
No, thank you. I think that was it.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Jeff. We'll get this sorted out hopefully this afternoon. Item 5 is Community Planning and Economic Development Subrecipient Agreement for Riparian Restoration, Allen's Chambers Ditch.
Yeah, the next three items, 5A, 5B, and 5C are related to each other. So let me give you the framework of that. Thurston County was awarded a National Estuary Program, NEP, the Stormwater Strategic Initiative grant for about $552,000 through the Department of Ecology. The grant funds is to improve water quality in Thurston County streams through an incentive program that centralizes information to landowners and motivates voluntary restoration and repair in areas on private land. The key element of the program is funding of repair and restoration pilot projects designed to mitigate impacts for stormwater and non-point source pollution. So the items that you have, 5A, 5B, and 5C, the specific subrecipient agreements with the Thurston Conservation District to do on specific improvements, repair, and restoration. So the 5A is related to is $76,000 and is planning to do a conservation repair and restoration of 1,400 feet under the Deschutes River. I will stop there and then I can give you the details of the items 5B and 5C after you have the opportunity to discuss this item. But also during the conversation last week, Commissioner Edwards asked the question whether these funding sources may be an opportunity to utilize to address some of the concerns the board has received related to Black Lake. We asked Christina Chapeau, who is here to reach out to public health and to explore that idea. Chris?
Yes, thank you. So I did reach out to Art Starry with Environmental Health regarding that particular question and gained more insight. It does not seem like this particular grant would be within the scope of the work that is necessary for the issues that Environmental Health is working on with Black Lake. We're really looking for projects that are more about planting, and Environmental Health is at the point of still investigating and scoping, and we don't have that kind of funding in this particular grant at this time.
No further questions from me.
Okay. Thanks, Chris.
Item 5B is for $52,282. And item 5B, and again with the Thurston Conservation Districts, to complete a repair and restoration of a 100-foot buffer along 1,300 feet of Chambers ditch. And that will be just about 3 acres of Chamber ditch repair and restoration. And item 5C is also with the Thurston Conservation District for $76,505. And this particular project will do repair and restoration to the Deschutes River, just about 3.1 acres. And Chris Chapeau is here again to give you, I give you the run numbers, sorry. 5C is for $49,964. And it is intended to do some 650 feet of McLean Creek repair and restoration. My apologies.
Anything from the board?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay. Good on that one. Thank you. Is that it for those 3 items, Ramiro?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then we'll go to Public Works 6A, resolution for 2021 Thurston County Solid Waste Management Plan.
Yeah, for your consideration, Commissioners, for you to approve the solid waste management plan, which this plan has been a long, I'm gonna use an extra long effort over the last few years. And it has been in coordination with the Solid Waste Advisory Committee and also members, representatives from the different jurisdictions as to how we got to this point, as well as representatives from the industry. The cities we have executed agreements with the cities of Lacey Olympia, Rainier, Tenaya, Tumwater, Tom Bucota, and this is related really as to how we're going to be managing solid waste for the years to come here in the county. And this is, I believe, a long effort by Karen Weiss, and she's here to give you more details. And again, this item is for you to consider approving the 2021 Solid Waste Management Plan, which I believe last week, Commissioner, was stated the Department of Ecology is a member of who participates on the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, and they have been part of the development of this plan. And currently, Commissioner Mejia is the one who also serves in the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, and she would like to provide additional perspective on this.
No, I think you described it perfectly.
Okay.
Karen, anything?
Nothing else to add unless you have questions for me. I thought Romero did a great job of describing what we're doing and the process that we've taken to get here.
Commissioner Edwards?
No, sir.
Okay. Me neither. Good work. Thanks, Karen.
Thank you.
6B, PSC Facility Relocation Agreement.
Yeah, first of all, last week we had the wrong number on the action that has been corrected. Now it's the $292,006.85. So the items 5C, 5B, and 5C are related. Item 6B is I provided the board with information related to the franchise agreements that we have in the county. The franchise agreement with utilities is when the county allows any particular utility to utilize the county's right-of-way to provide services to county citizens. Within the context of the franchise agreements, when the county needs to do some road improvements, and if we found utilities that perhaps might be in conflict with those road improvements, those within the franchise agreement, they need to relocate those facilities at their own cost. But also when we go outside of the county's right-of-way and we purchase additional right-of-way, we found those utilities that perhaps they have secure private easements. And in those cases, the franchise agreement does not apply. And this is a good example of that. When this is related to the improvements at the intersection of Meridian and Yelm Highway, where the county is planning to build a roundabout, that's the intersection. When we purchased this additional line and the improvements got into this, the new purchase property, we found there's a conflict with utility poles with PSE. So item 6B is an agreement with Puget Sound Energy for the county to compensate for $292,006 to relocate transmission poles that are in conflict with those proposed improvements. And this is covered by the project cost, is included on the cost estimate for the project. There is no additional budget, and this is just for the process that we need to go through. Brian?
Yeah, thank you, Romero. I have nothing additional to add, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Mejia?
No questions.
No
Commissioner
question.
Edwards?
No question.
Okay. Me neither, Brian. Thank you. Went through this last week. 6C is a contract award for the Yelm Highway and Meridian intersection improvements.
Yeah, that's for your considerations to award the contract to Pacific Civil and Infrastructure of Sumner, Washington, for a total cost of $2,210,051, which includes an aggregate of 10% to cover any unexpected activities during construction. The low bid, which was received by Pacific Civil Infrastructure of Summer, was $2,009,038. And that was the result of on June 8, 2021, the department received 4 bids. And the result of the competitive process, this particular effort was selected as a low bidder. This particular project is funded by $1.3 million from the Federal Highway Administration, and also is funded by the County Road Fund, as well as the Transportation Impact Fees. And again, the purpose of this project is to redesign this current T intersection and implement a runabout option on this, right?
You explained it perfectly. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to ask.
Commissioner Mejia?
No questions for me.
No, sir.
Commissioner Howard? Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
We are on to 6D, contract award for Deschutes Falls Park Walkway and Viewing Platform Project.
Yes, Commissioners, for your consideration is for you to consider award the contract to Quigg Brothers, Incorporated from Aberdeen, Washington. They provided the low bid of $440,636.60 to provide viewing improvements on the Deschutes Falls Park, which includes a viewing area, as a viewing platform, and also provide additional improvements with that. That was the result of receiving on July 29, 2021, 6 bids, and the Quigg Brothers of Incorporated Washington, of Aberdeen, Washington, provided the lowest bid. This particular cost, $440,000, is funded by the park impact fees as well as the real estate excise tax too. And those are included in the current budget. And the department is for you to consider authorizing a total cost of $484,698. That includes 10% of to cover any unexpected activities during construction. Kevin is here from Public Works.
Questions from the board?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
We'll go on to item 6E and F, which are right-of-way vacation in the plat of Boston Harbor is 6E. See Craig Sissons with us. Go ahead, Romero.
Yeah, you also reviewed this item, Commissioners, last week, where on May 25th, 2021, the hearing examiners held a public hearing related to this particular vacation. And this vacation is unopened right away, has not been opened for the public use, and the way that we go through on unopened right away is to go through the vacation process. This has been in the county's book, and it was recorded since 1907. The hearing examiners recommend the board to vacate this property as long as with conditions. And one of the conditions is the applicant shall pay the county for this vacation based on the Thurston County Code 13.36.3.030. So if the board approves this particular vacation, then the next step will start working with the property owner who will be acquiring this property from the county, and then another item will become for your consideration to finalize this process. You had a couple of conversations, a couple of questions related to this particular vacation last week. I know that Craig was not here, but he's here to answer any additional questions you may have.
Commissioner Mejia,
No, sir.
Commissioner Edwards.
Nope, got it covered.
All right, thank you, Craig. Stay online though. We have 6F. This is related to Rochester and James replat.
Similar to the previous item, on May 11, 2021, the hearing examiners held a virtual public hearing to receive testimonies for this potential vacation, which is located along Highway 12 in Rochester. There is a series of vacations associated with that. With this particular vacation, it's not a single piece, and and that you had a great conversation last week related to this proposal. This was filed on the auditors back in 1891. So it was a great conversation because we didn't know how that was donated to the county. Those small pieces of property, it was 15 feet wide at that time. And obviously at that time, we didn't have any vehicles, so probably the conditions were a little bit different. So for your consideration is to vacate those pieces of property. And again, the hearing examiners provided a series of conditions, one of which is to make sure they pay and compensate the county in association, in alignment with the Thurston County Code. Craig?
I have nothing further to add, but I'm here for any questions.
Okay, yeah, I remember this one. This one was just miscellaneous pieces, and we had a lot of discussion last week. Anything this week for this from Commissioner Mejia?
No, sir.
Commissioner Edwards?
No, sir.
Okay, very good. Let's move on to the last substantive item, County Manager 7A, resolution for COVID-19 vaccine requirements.
I gave the board a heads up that we'll bring this item for your consideration today. And this is related to a resolution required COVID-19 vaccination for Thurston County employees. If you give me the time, I'd really like to read the resolution for the record, since I will not be able to read the entire resolution this afternoon. So the resolution is attached in your packet, by the way, to follow along. A resolution of the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners requiring COVID-19 vaccination or weekly COVID-19 testing for county employees. Whereas on January 31st, 2020, the United States Department of Health and Human Services Secretary declared a public health emergency for COVID-19 beginning on January 27, 2020, including subsequent extensions. And whereas on February 29, 2020, the governor of the state of Washington adopted Proclamation 20-05 and subsequent amendments and proclaimed that the state of emergency exists in all counties in the state of Washington because of COVID-19. And whereas on March 12, 2020, the Board of County Commissioners adopted a resolution proclaiming a state of emergency within Thurston County due to COVID-19 and adopted subsequent resolutions extending the emergency until October 31st, 2021. And whereas on December 14, 2020, the Federal Drug Administration, FDA, and the Center of Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, issued an emergency use authorization for the use of the Pfizer biotech COVID-19 vaccine and subsequent authorizations for Moderna and the Johnson & Johnson vaccines. And whereas COVID-19 vaccines are effective in reducing infection and serious disease, widespread vaccination is their primary means to protect everyone, protecting us. Whereas on July 6, 2021, the Office of Legal Counsel of the United States Department of Justice issued a legal opinion stating that the federal and state governments were not prohibited by federal law from imposing vaccination mandates, even when the only vaccine available are those authorized under U.S. Food and Drug Administration emergency use authorization, and from imposing vaccine mandates, even when the only vaccine available are those authorized under the U.S. I'll revise that a little bit. Whereas, after months of improving COVID-19 epidemiological conditions in Washington state, the emergence of highly contagious COVID-19 variants, including the Delta variant, that is at least twice as transmissible as the virus that emerged in late 2019, coupled with the continued significant numbers of unvaccinated individuals have caused COVID-19 cases and hospitalizations to rise sharply among unvaccinated populations and have resulted in breakthrough infections in some fully vaccinated individuals. Whereas the recent Delta variant is having a negative impact on COVID-19 infections, the State Department of Health defines low disease activities by having 25 cases per 100,000 population in the prior 2 weeks. In the last 2 weeks prior to August 16, 2021, Thurston County, we have 360 cases, 360.1 cases per 100,000 population, which is considered high disease activity with a test positivity rate of 13.4%, the highest since the beginning of the pandemic. I'd like to emphasize those numbers were based on August 16, 2021, and you received different numbers this morning. Whereas, as of August 4, 2021, nearly 4.4 million Washingtonians, about 70% of those eligible are 58% of the total population had initiated their vaccine series, leaving 2.1 million eligible Washingtonians who are unvaccinated. And whereas, on August 9, 2021, the governor issued proclamation number 2114 prohibiting any worker from engaging in work for a state agency after October 18, 2021, if the worker has not been fully vaccinated against the COVID-19 as a result of the continued worldwide spread of COVID-19. Its significant progression in Washington state and the high risk it poses to our most vulnerable population in our healthcare system. Whereas, as of August 11, 2021, the vaccination rate of Thurston County is 50.6% of the overall population, and 53.3% have initiated at least one dose. And again, those are August 11, 2021 numbers. Whereas on August 18, 2021, the Washington Supreme Court of Washington issued order number 25700B669 prohibiting any worker defined as an employee, independent contractor, service provider, volunteer, and through any other formal or informal agreement to provide goods and services, whether compensated or uncompensated, from engaging in work for the Supreme Court's after November 1st, 2021, if the worker has not been fully vaccinated against the COVID-19. A worker must either be vaccinated or qualify for an exemption to be eligible for unemployment at the Supreme Court. In addition, the Supreme Court encouraged all other courts to adopt and implement similar vaccination requirements for their workers. And whereas it is the duty of every employer to protect the health and safety of employees by establishing and maintaining a healthy and safe work environment, and by requiring all employees to comply with health and safety measures. Whereas it is imperative to keep and maintain a healthy county workforce to continue to provide services to the residents of Thurston County. And whereas county employees, regardless of the current work setting, need to be prepared to come to their work site at any time necessary to meet the operations needs of the county. And whereas the county is the employer for all county employees for purposes of certain working conditions, including ensuring a healthy and safe work environment. And whereas the Board of County Commissioners has the authority to take actions that are reasonably necessary for the efficient administration of the county. And whereas a majority of the separately elected officials of Thurston County support the requirements of COVID-19 vaccination or weekly COVID testing. And whereas the county has a commitment to work with labor organizations on meeting collective bargaining obligations and adhere to the civil services rules. And whereas on August 19, 2021, the county sent notices to each of the county labor unions advising the county was considering COVID-19 vaccination requirements and weekly testing in lieu of vaccination, and offered several days in September to bargain the impacts of those requirements. And whereas in resolution number 15880, the Board of County Commissioners authorized the county manager to make and adjust human resources policies and rules related to leave usage and other issues related to employees as necessitated by the impacts of COVID-19. Now, therefore, pursuant the county's authority to ensure the safety of county personnel, volunteers, and the public accessing county services during COVID-19 public health emergency is hereby resolved by the Thurston County Board of Commissioners as follows. All county employees shall be fully vaccinated by October 31st, 2021, or in lieu of vaccination, will be required to submit a negative COVID-19 test results every week after October 31st, 2021. Second, employees will be required to show proof of vaccination. Personal attestation is not an acceptable form of verification. Acceptable proof includes a CDC COVID-19 vaccination record card or photo of the card, documentation of vaccination from healthcare providers or electronic health record, or a state immunization information system record. Number 3, county employees who choose not to be vaccinated or refuse to provide weekly COVID-19 test results and do not comply with this resolution by with this resolution after October 31st, 2021, may be subject to disciplinary action, including termination from county employment. Number 4, the county manager, pursuant to his authority to amend personnel policies and rules, shall adopt a temporary COVID-19 policy to implement this resolution. Number 5, to the extent this resolution changes existing county policy that applies to represented employees, adds to and modifies the collective bargaining agreements, the county will bargain the effects of that change to the extent required by law. And number 6, this resolution will take effect immediately and shall remain in effect until further action of the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners rescinds portions or all provisions of this resolution. And the last the last page of this resolution is a page where it states the undersigned supports the resolution adopted by the Board of County Commissioners. It would have listed all the elected officers on this resolution. Thank you for giving me the time that I needed to make sure that I read this out loud for the record. So I'm open for any questions.
Sorry, Commissioner Mejia,
No questions at this time.
Commissioner Edwards.
Yes. Did the EMS Council submit a copy of a letter that they wrote to the governor in regards to his action?
I was made aware of that letter, Commissioner, but I have not received a copy.
Haven't received a copy
I
of
have
it
not
yet?
received a copy.
I guess I'd just point out that the EMS Council did take a vote against this, and it has to do with, I recused myself from that vote, but it did have to do with the inability to supply services to the county residents if that follows through as intended. That's about the best way I can put it.
So was the I was given a heads up of the letter, but I believe the letter included to the governor, encouraging the governor to allow for the weekly testing as opposed to be contingent to their employment.
I think so.
Okay.
Okay, I wanted to give some options.
Yeah. So
Even at that, I don't have all the information because I haven't seen the letter.
Yeah, I haven't seen. I just
wanted to make sure that.
Yeah.
And that was not a unanimous vote. It was, I think there were 2 abstainers. No, 2 voted no. I abstained. So just so you know. I guess I do have a question. Have we got any different numbers than what we were told last week, that there's 400 employees that have attested to the vaccination and 700 that have not?
No,
Nothing changed there?
We have not changed. And we realized that some offices and departments have not submitted their logs. So there is, that number is perhaps soft. Yeah.
Is there any provision for county employees that take this vaccination under duress, my term, that they would be taken care of if there is an adverse medical situation that develops. And the reason I bring that up is the State Department of Health actually maintains quite a lengthy record. I may bring it into the board meeting this afternoon, but with some thousands of adverse reactions to the vaccinations, including deaths. And granted, it's a small percentage, but so is the number of deaths that have come about because of the COVID-19 infection itself. I think that rate is, the number of deaths in Thurston County is something like 0.0015%. And I don't even know if the adverse reactions and the deaths, because there's been millions of vaccinations in the state of Washington, but they're just, I don't know if it's a similar low number, but it's a concern. So anyway, I just bring that up. Is there anything that covers the employees if they have to take this vaccination and have an adverse reaction that guarantees they'll be taken care of if such an event occurs? Have we reached any agreement with the bargaining units or anything else that is going to assure them, should there be an adverse reaction, that they're going to be covered?
So we,
Possibly for the rest of their life.
so we have already sent a notice to the unions to start the conversations related to the impacts of this potential decision.
But nothing yet should. So if an employee, under this resolution, if they feel obligated, they're gonna take the vaccination, nothing is going to give them any protection, is that right?
Or they can provide a weekly testing.
Yep, they can do
So
that.
that's the option.
Right, that is an option. Okay, just curious. I would have one question on on page 3 on whereas, where it starts out on August 18th, 2021. The third sentence from the bottom, it says a worker must either be vaccinated or qualify for an exemption. Is there any chance that might need to explain what an exemption is? Is there an exemption maybe that's granted under an RCW or anything that would clarify that particular sentence?
So there's, they were asked that you make a reference on page 3, which begins with on August 18, 2021.
Yes, sir.
It makes a reference to the Washington Supreme Court order.
Yeah.
And in that order includes for exemptions because the order it requires vaccination as a condition of employment. This is just making a reference to that.
Okay. Good enough. Okay. I feel it's unfortunate that the goalpost has been changed so many times as we've moved forward with this issue that we're dealing with today, and I just don't feel the public trust is there. And I'm not going to get into all the cases that have been related to me here, situations, the maybes, the what ifs, but it's just a reality we're faced with today. So, thank you.
And related to that, we have on your email, you have several comments that you have received related to this item.
Yes.
Some in opposition, but the majority are in favor of you considering this action.
Yep. Okay, good enough. That's the only comments I would have for now.
Okay, Ramiro, can I presume that this resolution has gone through legal review?
Yes, I have been working with Elizabeth, and I believe Elizabeth is online. I just noticed while I was reading, I need to do a little typographical corrections, but nothing.
Yeah, I have a bunch of typographical stuff I'll leave on your desk.
I need to go through that, but in essence, I have been working with Elizabeth on this, so she's available to answer any questions you like.
So my only question is about the elected offices and the way that this is worded. And I understood that we would have this sheet where the elected officers could sign on, but I guess my question for you and or Elizabeth is, if an elected official does not sign, what is the effect? The whereas is, or the now therefore says all county employees, but it doesn't define county employees. Would that, I mean, my understanding was that if an elected official didn't sign on, it wouldn't apply to their group. Am I wrong about that?
Yeah, through the conversation with Elizabeth, this resolution applies to all county employees. And that is why you see the last page of support.
So if a particular office's elected leader did not sign this, their employees would still be subject to the same requirements.
That is correct, sir.
And that is because Elizabeth's advising that it needs to be that way for a legal reason, or, I mean, this is not exactly what we just discussed at the last meeting.
If this is the proposal that I have been working with Elizabeth, and I think it creates an umbrella for all county employees. The elected officials can sign in support. If they don't support it, it doesn't mean they will not be carried through the resolution of the board. And that's how I believe they creates a larger umbrella to be consistent with all county employees. But certainly, if the board wants to take different direction on this resolution, is it within your purview?
Chair, I have one other question when I get a second. Thank you.
Before we go, if I may, perhaps Elizabeth can speak to the board's authority to enact policy that applies to all county employees, because that was one of my questions.
Go ahead, Elizabeth, and then we'll get to Commissioner Edwards.
Good morning, Commissioners. The premise of the board's authority is that it has authority over the working conditions of its employees. And this is recognized, and that is why we have bargaining issues that the county has to deal with. So the county is considered the employer of all county employees, and that's why the county is the party to the bargaining agreement. And this is conditions dealing with public health and safety are considered working conditions. And so the Board of County Commissioners can set those standards for all county employees. I will say there is a potential exemption or exception if the courts decide to adopt their own policy with respect to this question of vaccinations and or testing, because they would be operating under their independent authority as the courts. And I do not know what, if any, position the courts are going to take independently of the board's action.
Commissioner Mejia, do you have a question about that?
No, just an extra comment. I spoke with district and Superior Court about this, and they are in support of it. Their mentality right now is they might follow what the administrative office of the court does, which is following the governor's order, not the weekly testing. So instead they would terminate upon that date, but they are still waiting for direction from AOC.
Mr. Edwards, you had something.
One question about the cost of the test. If employees opt to have the weekly test, is that going to be covered by the county?
That's part of the bargaining conversations that will occur in September. That's the bargaining day impacts.
Okay, so this could be an additional cost to the employee if it comes out that way. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Elizabeth, Ramiro? All right, thank you. that point, we will do our standing items under item 7, B, C, and D. There will be a public hearing at 3 p.m. I'm predicting that it will not begin at 3 p.m. just based on the number of weighty items that are on today's agenda and anticipated public comment. So we'll get to this item as soon as after 3 p.m. as possible. The topic is the public hearing regarding vehicular weight restrictions. Matt Unzelman from Public Works is here. Let's address that, and then we'll take a 10-minute recess. Go ahead, Matt.
This will just be, I don't anticipate this will be a lengthy public hearing. We've received very little. In fact, we've received no comment, even though we did an extensive outreach for this project. Should be a quick one.
Okay. Any questions for Matt from the board on the public hearing today?
No, sir.
Okay, it's 10:39. We'll take a 11-minute break and jump back in at 10:50 to item number 4, which will be a review of next week's draft agenda.
You're on.
Okay, we're back. It is 10:49, and we are back for our Thurston County Board of County Commissioners agenda setting work session for August 31st. We left off with item 4 on the agenda, which is a review of next week's proposed agenda, August 31st. The board meeting would be called to order at 2 p.m. Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Vice Chair Edwards, consideration of agenda and meeting minutes from this afternoon. And then a series of presentations. The first is Washington State Auditor of the Year Award.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. Secretary of State, Ms. Kim Wyman, will be attending the board meeting. She will be presenting Mary Holt, the Thurston County Auditor, with the Washington State Auditors of the Year Award. A well-deserved award, so you will hear that from Ms. Kim Wyman.
Okay, any questions on that? All right. The next presentation is from Public Works. Notice of US DOT Act Section 4F de minimis.
So this is an interesting item. So as anything else, sometimes I come across an item that I have not seen in the past. So this is one of them. So the Department of Public Works is planning to construct a runabout in the location of Johnson Point and the Hawkesbury Road intersection. The result of that is going to be affecting a protected area. The protected area is the Woodland Creek Wetland Preserve. The Woodland Creek Wetland Preserve is managed by the Thurston County Parks Department. But this particular preserve is protected by federal and state requirements, particularly related to 23 CRF Part 774, Section 4F. There is an impact to this protected area by building the improvements of Johnson Point of Hawkesbury, which is going to be a runabout, of just about 400 square feet. And the total protected area is 67.9 acres. So 400 feet, close to 68 acres, that's what we consider to be de minimis. But in order for us to allow this to happen, we need to make a formal announcement as to the intent of the department to take a portion of this protected area to build those road improvements. And this item does that. It's a public statement of the intent of the county to take 400 square feet out of the 68 acres, which is protected by federal and state regulation. And again, this public statement is required by the federal and state requirements that we need to publicly state the intent of this de minimis use of this wetland preserve. That's my story on this one. But Elena Fernandez from Public Works is here if you want to add anything else related to this item.
No, sir, you actually summarized it very well. This is this public announcement of our intent to, acquire that 444 square feet for the road project. It's a WashDOT local programs requirement and an FHWA requirement.
Commissioner Mejia?
No questions, sir.
Commissioner Edwards?
Is there a requirement that we hold a public hearing or anything on this?
No public hearing. We just need to make a public announcement of the intent.
And does that follow the normal processes that we would follow when we're notifying of a public hearing? And then that suffices?
Yeah, so there's not a requirement for a public hearing.
No, but I mean, the notice needs to go out, what, to the county paper of record and all that kind of stuff?
No, it's just a public announcement.
Oh, right here in public. Oh, good enough.
If we meet that requirement,
Oh,
It's just the public, the need to make the announcement in a public setting.
okay.
And you're
Are you,
giving
are
us
you
the
sure
public-
you've got that right? Because I can't believe the bureaucratic process could be that
Well,
simple.
you know, I'm always finding ways to expedite the process.
Okay, good for you.
And this is one of them.
Thank you. No question.
My only comment is that de minimis is spelled with an IS at the end, not a US. So you want to change that in the two places where it's misspelled. Okay, let's go on then to item, thank you, Elena. Let's go on to
Thank you.
item, the next item under presentations, which is an emergency services proclamation for National Preparedness Month. Kurt Harden is here, our Director of Emergency Services.
Yeah, Commissioners, you will hear from your Director of Emergency Services related to the proposed proclamation for September 2021 as National Preparedness Month in Thurston County. Kurt?
Good morning, Commissioners. Kurt Harden, Director of Emergency Services. Every year, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security and FEMA sponsor a National Preparedness Month, and that's in September. This is a nationwide effort held each September to encourage everyone to take steps to prepare for emergencies and disasters in their homes, businesses, schools, and community. Thurston County Emergency Management has emergency preparedness information available for homes, families, businesses, and communities, and we have promotional materials for National Preparedness Month weekly messages. We'll be conducting a Map Your Neighborhood training, which will be conducted virtually through a Zoom platform. And then we'll also be offering preparedness tips throughout the month for over social media and through community partners. So we will do this presentation next week and ask for the county commissioners to issue the proclamation.
Questions or comments from the board?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you, Kurt.
Thank you.
Look forward to that one. Opportunity for the public to address the board will follow. County manager's update after that. Anything, Ramiro?
I will follow up with any comments that need to be followed based on the comments you may receive today.
Okay, thank you. There are then 5 consent items. 3A is a treasurer item. Looks like 3A, B, and C are all treasurer items, tax title, property sales. Jeff Gadman's here from our county treasurer. And we have maps, it looks like here. Should I turn this to the treasurer?
Yeah, if Jeff, you want to frame it?
Do you want to give a lead in, Ramiro?
Yeah. Item 3A is related to, and attached to your map, is a property, a tax title property that was reverted to the county back in 1976. And there were no debtors on the foreclosure auction. And the next step, as per RCW, is for the county treasurer to get into a private negotiation related to this particular surplus. This is a 5-foot strip, as you can see, and is considered unbuildable. They propose a sale of this property is $513.50. That includes all the fees. And the size of this property is 0.02 acres.
5-foot strip, did you say?
Yeah. Which one are you looking at?
Yeah, okay.
Snake Farm, that's what Commissioner Hutchings was proposing. Any questions?
If you run it as a worm farm, you get a higher density of population.
Any questions on 3A?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, let's go to 3B. Go ahead, County Manager.
Yeah, 3D is similar in context and a little bit different in details. This particular property is located on the north west of the county, and located on the Carlone Beach. And this is became as a tax title back in 2015. This is a 0.32 acres. And I provided you with a map. And as you can see, it appears to be a somewhat of a cul-de-sac accessing this parcel, but in reality, this parcel is landlocked. If I took the time to look at the aerial, and because on the description from the treasurer's office, it states that this property doesn't have an access. Based on the parcel layer that I printed to you, it does have access, appear to be, but if you see the aerial, it does not, because the road doesn't get to this property. So their statement, at least from my point of view, is correct. It is landlocked. Jeff?
Can I ask something on that then? I mean,
Go ahead, sir.
So it's really landlocked, but GIS photos or mapping says it's not? That's gonna be confusing to the public, isn't it?
Because you're right, and I was a little bit confused on that, because when I saw that, read the description, and I said it's landlocked, but if you see the areas, there's no improvement. So what you have in here is the original plat. There at some point they were intended to build this cul-de-sac, but never has.
Oh, there's no cul-de-sac
No
here
cul-de-sac.
called Bowline
Yeah, no cul-de-sac.
Court?
Can I've got a little bit more background, and thank you all for your time this morning. So in 1999, there was, most of these lots were actually built on in 1999, and it had been through the years. In 1999, an ancient slide on that Hunter Point Peninsula let go. And this area is called the Carline Beach Scarp area. And so these houses, many of them were destroyed. They were all damaged beyond repair. And it was determined by the Board of Commissioners at that time in the building department through engineering studies that it was really unsafe to go back in and inhabit this part of the land. And part of that is obviously the weight of the buildings on the hillside. So once that was determined, all of the buildings in there were removed. The utilities were removed, and there were concrete barriers put on the roads, the access roads. So now we've had 22 years of Mother Nature overtaking these sites and pretty much obliterating any evidence of development. The gentleman who is asking to purchase these used to be on the Carline Homeowners Board, and what he's looking for is a camping lot.
Okay, any questions about this one?
I guess my question would be, how does he get to the camping lot if there isn't any access?
He can walk in. He has to walk in. There's no driving or anything. And like I said, the roads are overgrown. It's been a few years since I've been out there, but the last time I was out there, you really almost couldn't even tell where the roads were.
There are tall trees there.
I guess, no, when I think of access, I think of legal ingress and, that type of a thing. Whether or not you can build a road, but, so you're saying there is access to the lot if you, I don't know, took a bicycle or a trail or
Yeah, it would have to be bicycle or on foot or something.
I mean, there's a restriction if you own that lot, the lot does not connect up to the Bowline Court, because there is no Bowline Court.
There's no...
So it still exists as a roadway on the plat. Okay, the plat map has not been altered. But for, like I said, the last time I was out there, you couldn't even tell where the road used to be because it's been all overgrown by shrubs and brush and such. And so the only way to access this is you would have to, if you drive into the neighborhood, you're gonna have to park your vehicle somewhere. There's no practical parking where the concrete barriers are, but then you would have to walk into the property.
who's in charge of the concrete barriers, I guess?
I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't know. The roads out in that area are owned by the homeowners association.
Private.
And so they're private roads. And I don't know if those barriers were placed at the order of the county based on the inherent danger of, driving on those roads, or if they were placed at the behest of the homeowners board. I don't know the answer to that one.
Okay. I've seen the county where they've told somebody it's not a buildable lot, and the lot changed hands, and all of a sudden it was a buildable lot. So I'm gun shy about it, that's all. I mean.
Well, remember, we're not saying it's unbuildable. What we're saying is it's not practical to build on. If you look at the slopes, and if you go in and look at the critical areas ordinance, just the amount of engineering that would have to be done to determine whether these properties could even support a building or not is going to be horribly expensive.
Are any of these other lots that are shown, there's a 700, an 800, and a 000.
Yeah. That's the next item on your agenda.
Oh, we've got more coming of the same development?
Yeah.
This person is wanting to buy them all?
The next item is the 6000 on your.
Okay, well then I'll just wait until we get to everything. I guess.
So it's just, no.
It's all part and parcel of this discussion, is it?
Because the item 5B, is what you're talking about, and 3D is the parcel next to it.
I like the idea of the county. And Jeff, I want to commend you for getting these properties back on the tax roll in one fashion or another. It's just, I always like to make sure, I don't know, that there's not unfair advantage or.
May I ask a?
Yeah, I'm curious.
So I have two questions. The first is, are the owners of these other parcels that are apparently also vacated, are those owners continuing to pay their taxes? We only own a few of these.
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know how many of these we actually got as tax title, but yes, most of them are privately owned. They continue to pay their taxes. They continue to pay their homeowners dues. Okay. One of the advantages to owning a lot in this neighborhood is it gets you access to the community recreation areas.
Oh, that's interesting.
Oh, that's the.
That's very interesting.
That's the current.
And then my second question is, when's the last time the county put these up for auction?
2015.
And there just was no bids, or?
Right, no bids.
I mean, Commissioner, you could ask the treasurer to put them up for auction again before going through with this private sale, but we've done our due diligence.
Yeah, I guess my concern is if there's amenities that come with the ownership of a property, are we gonna cause some kind of a homeowner dilemma there by getting in the middle of doing something, and what that something is, maybe is selling the lot, and then the community's up in arms because some kind of bad activity is taking place on the lot or associated with the lot. It'd be different if it was an adjoining lot owner or something, but when we talk about amenities that go with these homeowner associations, I'm just curious. I'd sure like to know that the homeowners association was not adverse to this. I mean, we haven't heard anything about it, but they might not know anything about it, is my concern.
I mean, even the properties that are near this, that are in the same physical condition, that are privately owned, those owners could buy and sell those properties at will. It doesn't require approval from the homeowners association. So I don't think that I mean, we obviously can't predict what might happen in the future, but I don't see any risk to the county from selling these through the legal means we have available. And I see an advantage to the county in that we now are going to get tax revenue from these properties. And the homeowners association is going to all of a sudden start paying dues or collecting dues from these two properties that they haven't been able to collect for the last 6 years.
Yeah, it might be a good thing. I guess I'd like to, my questions are not always simple, but I don't like to get I don't know answers if there's the possibility. And so I guess I would ask that we at least hold off on this until we can talk maybe to the association, a member or the president of that group, and have them say, oh yeah, boy, we'd like to get rid of these. Or oh man, don't sell that, you know, because if you do, X is gonna happen. I'd just like to hear something from potentially affected neighbors. That's all I'm asking. We don't have public hearings on this type of thing, so.
So remember, these are tax title. We do not own them.
Right.
We're holding them in trust.
I do think Robin's suggestion, boy, that makes sense to me, to at least, I don't know what was going on in 2015 that they did or didn't participate, or that nobody did. And if we did it through an auction, then everybody's had a shot at it. I guess.
The homeowners association and the adjacent property owners would have been notified that these were going up for auction.
They have been, you say?
They would have been,
They
yes,
would have
back
been.
in 2015, and they would have known that these properties were going up for auction. I don't remember the exact numbers, but for a bargain price.
When you have an auction like that, is there a set price that somebody has to pay to pay off whatever is owed in the past? I mean, so you start off with a minimum price. Is that the way that works?
Yeah, it's a minimum. The minimum is to cover the taxes that are owed, plus any costs associated with getting to that point. So you've got some collection fees. You know, we got to pay for the revenue officer's time. We've got to pay for the title reports and that sort of thing.
So is there a minimum auction fee set right now if this was to go to auction?
So once it becomes tax title, the minimum is to recover the former taxes.
And what's that?
But we do put other costs in there because so the revenue officer is not paid for out of the general fund. The revenue officer is only paid out of what fees are collected on these delinquent properties. So that's part of what the price is paying for.
I guess maybe, is there another sheet that I don't have then that's about this adjoining property?
What's the sale price of this?
Yeah, for the 6,000 property, it ends on 6,000 on the map.
Okay, I guess I'm actually interested in both of them.
Yeah, so let me give you the cost. The proposed sale is $2,763.50. And for the 5,900, the last four numbers of the parcel is $1,363.50. And that includes, obviously, all the fees, as Jeff stated.
So about $4,000 for both of them.
Yeah.
And these properties went up for auction in 2015, one a shade less than $1,700 and one a shade more than $1,700. And received no bids.
Okay, well, we need to move on. I guess if we keep it on the agenda, Commissioner Edwards can certainly call the Homeowners Association this week if he wants to, and then we report back to us next week.
Again, I want to thank Jeff for being tenacious about getting rid of these problems. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and thank you for your concern. I would request when you get whatever response you get from them, would you let me know in advance of the meeting next week so it's not a surprise?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Appreciate your time. Next item is 3D, Sheriff Office item, request for proposals for inmate chemical dependency program services. Under Sheriff Ray Brady's with us. Go ahead, County Manager.
Commissioner, for your consideration is for you to authorize the Sheriff's Office to go with that request for proposals for inmate chemical dependency services in the Thurston County Corrections Facility. The current contract that we have in place expires on December 31st, 2021. And the Sheriff's Office is being proactive to go with the request for proposals to secure the services of a new vendor, if that is the case. This particular proposal includes provisions based on chemical dependency services, certified chemical dependency staff equipment, and this particular program is funded by the treatment sales tax. Under Sheriff Brady is here, if you have any questions.
Commissioner Mejia?
No questions in regards to this.
No, sir. No, sir.
Who's the current provider of these services?
I will get that information for you and let you know.
I'm just curious, but couldn't remember. But okay, good. I don't think we have any problems here. So we'll just have that on next week's consent agenda. Thank you. Then we've got 3E, Auditor voucher list, and the board can raise issues as needed once we see that. Item 4A is a community planning and economic development, setting a public hearing for Tumwater Joint Plan update.
Commissioners, if I may, before we get into the department items, you will see a new item next week, and that's from Central Services. It is related for you to authorize going with a request for qualifications to secure the services of an architectural firm to start working on the courthouse campus. And those professional services are needed, whether we go with the 3,000 building or not. And I think it's timely for us to secure the services. We're gonna start working as to what we need to do here at the courthouse campus. So you will see that item coming your way next week, so I want to give you a heads up that it's coming. So related to item 4A, this is a follow-up to the conversation the board had and the briefing. There was a joint briefing between the Thurston County planning staff as well as the city of Tumwater related to the joint plan with the city of Tumwater. On August 12, the board reviewed this particular proposal, and there was a follow-up to the many joint meetings with the Thurston County Planning Commission as well as the City of Tumwater Planning Commission held on March 31st, April 15, and May 20, 2021. The result of those conversations is the proposal that staff presented to you again on August 12, 2021. And this item is for you to consider setting a public hearing, for you to receive public testimony, and that was based on the direction the board provided at that time. Maya Tipo is here to answer any particulars related to this item.
Yeah, we had a separate briefing on this. Any questions about this item, commissioners?
No, sir.
No, sir.
All right, thank you, Maya. Straightforward. Let's go to Public Health and Social Services, 5A, request for proposals for Developmental Disabilities Department Community Project Grants.
Yeah, also for your consideration is to authorize the Department of Public Health and Social Services to issue a request for proposals for services, programs, and community outreach to enhance and increase services in the community that supports the health and well-being of individuals with developmental disabilities and their families. The request for proposals at this point has a $600,000, comes from the Thurston County Millage Fund, we had a conversation as to what we call the millage, that's part of the property tax. And also includes 200,000 from the Thurston, from the Mason County millage funds, as well as some other estate rents. The next step in the process is the board authorizes this particular request for proposals. The staff will work in reviewing the proposals with a review panel that is going to be comprised of professionals in the developmental disabilities field, as well as community members who have knowledge of our community needs. And after that review is completed, staff will bring a recommendation for you to award those grants. And Elise Cole is here from Public Health. Answer any questions.
Commissioner Mejia?
No questions.
Commissioner Edwards?
No, sir.
Nope, me neither. Thanks, Annalise.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Let's go to 6A, Public Works Ordinance restricting compression brakes on Little Rock Road Southwest.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. This is a follow-up to the public hearing you held on July 20, 2021. But you really didn't receive any public testimony related to put restrictions on compression brakes restrictions on 2 locations. And the board had a follow-up conversation on this matter, and the board decided to implement just a compression brake restrictions on Little Rock between Albany Road Southeast and Sargent Road Southeast. So this particular action for your consideration is to confirm the board decision that it was given a couple of weeks ago. Matt?
The county manager said it very well. This is simply just a formality to, when we were at the public hearing, we couldn't take action because we needed to revise the ordinance to remove Churchill Road from the proposed restriction and keep the Little Rock Road restriction on there.
Yep, okay. Any questions from the board?
No, sir.
No, sir.
All right, thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Next is 6B, request for proposal for a solid waste, moderate risk waste transportation and disposition management services contract. That's a mouthful.
Yes, a mouthful. Thank you, Commissioners. As you well aware, at the solid waste waste and recovery center, also known as the WARC, located at the Hawkesbury, we have a facility called the Hazard House, which is the collection for the proper management of household hazardous waste materials. And this particular proposal is authorized the department to go out and request proposals as to how we're going to be transporting and disposing of those household hazard materials that we hold in, that we receive at the Hazard House here at the work location. Jeff, your turn.
Good morning, Commissioners. Yeah, we'll be looking to just get proposals from consultants for the hauling and ultimate disposition of the waste, whether that be in a landfill, incineration, or recycling. So I'm hoping to get some good pricing. I'll be able to answer any other questions you might have.
Commissioner Mejia?
No, not this time.
Commissioner Edwards?
Yes, Jeff, who's doing it now?
It's Clean Earth is the name of the company.
And how long have they been doing it?
Oh, for quite a number of years. I can find out exactly how many.
No, that's okay. I don't need to know that. Yeah. I'm just, are we satisfied with what they're doing?
They're doing a passable job, certainly. And they likely will be obviously one of the proposers.
Oh, okay, and this is just a normal process. After so many years, the contract expires and it's just up for bid.
Correct. And so we get to initiate a new contract and get current pricing.
Okay, thank you.
So, and if I may, Jeff, just to provide a perspective to the board, on an annual basis, we receive approximately 25,000 customers who use this facility. And the drop-off on a yearly basis is upwards of 100 tons of waste that we process just at the Hazard House. So, just to give you
okay,
I'm sorry.
Maybe Jeff could just give us an idea of what types of things we're talking about. Fluids, asbestos, what are we talking about
And asbestos isn't at this facility. There's a whole other process for that. But what it typically, it'd be poisons, pesticides, herbicides. That's basically dangerous chemicals, certain more toxic cleaners, fuels. People have like the old gas and diesel that they have, oil-based paint, and just other toxic type chemicals.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Let's go to 6C, setting a public hearing for the 6-year Transportation Improvement Program for 2022 to 27.
Yeah.
Scott Lindblom, County Engineer, is here.
Scott is here. Thank you, Commissioners. This is a follow-up to the July 21st, 2020 web briefing where the County Engineer, Scott Lindblom, formally presented the 6-year Transportation Improvement Program, and that is pursuant RCW 3681-121. The next step in the process, as directed by the board, is for you to set a public hearing for you to receive public testimony before you consider approving this plan. Scott?
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. This is a part of the process we do each year to update our 6-year Transportation Improvement Program. As the County Manager said, we did brief the board in July, and the request today is to schedule a public hearing for September 28th at 3 o'clock or as soon thereafter as the matter can be heard.
Questions on this?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, good to go. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Item 7A is a Sheriff's Office item, resolution for body scanner with thermal scanner.
Yeah, Commissioners, this is a follow-up to the budget amendment action that you took early in the year, where you allocated funding for the Sheriff's Office to purchase a body scanner. It will be utilized at the jail corrections facility. This for the cost at this point of $204,120, and the request is for you to authorize going through the United States General Services Administration to purchase this scanner. I believe the Sheriff's Office has done the due diligence and determined what type of equipment they need, and this is the authorization point for you to authorize this purchase. And the Sheriff?
Hey, good morning, Commissioners. And real quick, Commissioner Menser, back to item 3D. Our CDP program currently is run through Alternative Professional Counseling. I wanted to circle back on that. For this item, as the County Manager mentioned, the board approved the funding for this item earlier this year. Our staff did a tremendous amount of work traveling around the state, testing various different scanners that are currently in use in correctional facilities. They settled on this particular scanner. So our main request for this is to utilize the US GSA program for purchasing of this item. You'll notice the cost came in less than the amount that was allotted for this. We do anticipate there'll be a little bit of additional costs for shipping and handling, and there will also be some costs associated with installation and infrastructure type costs. But we still fully believe that this will come in less than the amount that was allotted earlier this year.
Commissioner Mejia, any questions for the Undersheriff?
No questions. I remember this at the budget amendment, this request.
Commissioner Edwards?
No, sir.
Ramiro, I guess it says move to approve resolution. So what, we have to pass a resolution on this item for some reason? I mean, why is that?
Good question. Let me circle back on that. It is a resolution or just an authorization.
Okay, well, either way, sounds like we're good to go. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you.
All right, next is 8A Superior Court 2021-22 Superior Court Treatment Services Contract.
Yeah, Commissioners, Superior Court conducted a request for proposals that was in July 2021 to secure the services for curb treatment services. And the result of that proposal is concluded for you to consider awarding the contract to Pierce County Alliance to provide those treatment services at Superior Court. I think George is here to cover this item. Do you have any particular questions?
Commissioner Mejia?
What's the start date and what's the end date of this contract?
So the start date would be when it's executed, and we'll have 1 year and then 2 potential renewal years.
And is there a cost associated with this?
Yeah, it's about $58,000, Commissioner, and it's paid through the criminal treatment account administered through public health.
So Georgia, this work on the action to include the terms of the contract as well as the cost of the contract.
Right.
So we need to revise the action that you submitted to include those
Okay.
2 items.
All right.
I think there's some
We'll do
extra words in there too, so you might just want to take a look at the wording of it.
Okay.
I noticed that. Thank you.
Commissioner Edwards?
And we're currently using these folks and have been for years, aren't we?
That's right.
Okay. Anything else? Good to go. Thank you, Georgia.
Thank you.
Okay, that'll bring us to the standing items under 9A, B, and C, and we will move to adjourn at that point. So that brings us to we're at 11:31. We're at item 5 on the morning's agenda, proclamations and awards.
Good morning, Amy Davis, Clerk of the Board. The draft of next week's National Preparedness Month proclamation is attached. The board requested the draft of the proclamations for September. Those are included as well, and they are for the Day of Service and Remembrance of 9/11, National Hispanic and Latino Heritage Month, and Voter Registration Day. Voter Registration Day is provided by the Auditor's Office, so I included last year's as an example. There was a 4th for Constitution Day, which I had found had been listed in previous years, but I cannot actually find a copy of a prior proclamation for it. So in order to shorten the list, I think as requested, I removed the Constitution Day proclamation from the schedule. And so these are here for discussion. If you'd like to remove any others or reschedule any, we can certainly do that.
Okay. Commissioner Mejia?
No, I'll questions or comments at this time. Thank you.
Commissioner Edwards?
No questions.
Nope, I think I'm good with that. We'll take a look at the wording of these and we can revisit next week. Then let's go to item 6, advisory boards and commissions.
There are no advisory boards or commissions for review this morning.
Okay, PIO check-in, item 7.
Good morning, Commissioners. Megan Porter, Public Information Supervisor. The only thing I have updated is I often get contacted by residents about the Comcast cable franchise, and it's never had a web presence, so I have remedied that. We now have a web page that has the franchise agreement posted and some FAQs around it. I worked with Grace O'Connor at our prosecuting attorney's office, and then a final review with Ken Fellman, the franchise agreement attorney. So that is out there and available for residents as they need it. Pending any questions, that's what I have.
Any questions for Megan?
No, thank you.
No, sir.
Okay, thank you, Megan. Anything under item 8, Ramiro?
Sir, nothing is pending.
Okay, then we're off to commissioner items. Number 1 is the Climate Action Implementation Plan update.
Thank you, Commissioners. Jenica Machado is going to walk you through the Thurston County implementation plan. As you may recall, the board and the county approved the regional climate mitigation plan that has been in place, I believe, since late last year. So the next step in the process was to start working as to what would the implementation strategies the county can take to start implementing the plan itself. So Jennifer is going to walk you through what this draft proposal, and I'm sure she is available for questions. Jennifer.
Hi, good morning, Commissioners. Jenica Machado, Economic Development Manager. As Ramiro mentioned, I'll be going through a climate spending overview with you this morning. So if you don't mind, I'll share my screen and show the document as we walk through it. Okay, so. All right, so previously the Board of County Commissioners approved the multi-jurisdictional climate mitigation plan. The plan provides a framework for climate mitigation in our region, and it provides a deep analysis of mitigation actions and identifies 72 specific actions. The intent of this document is to provide a high-level overview focusing on the individual jurisdictional spending options. The actions span various departments in the county, so the feedback represented in the document is gathered from the respective department or division that would be involved with implementation. And so the implementation strategies were broken out in the plan into 4 different categories. These categories include legislative, regionally coordinated, supporting partner, and individual jurisdiction. And as I mentioned, this document is mainly focusing on the individual jurisdiction actions, as there'll need to be more coordinated conversations with external partners and jurisdictions to move the other items forward. And so there are 22 individual jurisdiction actions out of the 72 full list identified in the plan. And so something that you'll see in this document, and it is from the climate mitigation plan, is the top priority score, or the action priority score. And so this was developed by the consultant team in the climate mitigation plan to help prioritize these actions. It has combined criteria rankings. And so you see an example on this page, greenhouse gas reduction potential, control, speed of deployment, co-benefits. And so that created a score on a scale of 0 to 5. And so also in the climate mitigation plan, this score criteria was ranked into the top 50 overall actions. And so you'll see these on the highest score on the TPS all the way to the right, all the way down to the lowest of the 50. Next, so for context and reference for the following information, you have 2 attachments. One attachment is the full list of all of the identified 72 actions with their description. And then attachment 2 is going to be the full list with feedback and resources identified by the respective department or division. And so this information was then broken down into categories of action for the Board of County Commissioners. All right, so then here we are starting on our action categories. Our first category is a summary of items that require no action at this time. The items listed are either complete, currently underway, or not applicable to Thurston County. This part of the list includes 8 of the 22 individual jurisdiction actions. And so here you see tree canopy preservation, LED lighting, the eco districts, or the waste audits, and those other ones that are listed. The next category is a list that contains items that require action but no budget allocation at this time. And so here we have the public building solar, telework, water audit. And in this table, you'll see the short name, the department that would lead implementation, and the implementation strategy is this individual or regional. The action, so what would be required from the Board of County Commissioners, and then included all the way up to the right is the priority score. The next category is a summary of actionable items with budget implications, but are not climate budget related. And so here you'll see transportation efficiency, which would be led by the Public Works. And the action that is identified is there is a current request in the budget request 1190, which is asking for a 1 FTE, and this would be coming out of the roads fund. And this FTE would help complete the action transportation efficiency labeled T2.2. The next two listed are both in the CPED department, green building tracking and permit counter technical assistance. And so for this, after speaking with Brett Burrs over in the CPED department, the first step that was identified was doing an analysis of the International Green Construction Code. And so this under the direction of the county commissioners, would be able to be completed with the current capacity and resources in CPED and would not require an additional allocation at this time. However, the next phases of implementation for these items would require a budget authority to CPED. And so depending on the analysis, if new codes need to be written or if the items are ready for implementation, CPED could bundle addressing these items within 1.5 FTE that would be employed on an ongoing basis under their cost recovery model. And so with this additional 0.5 FTE, it would address the green building tracking, permit counter technical assistance, and SolSmart. And then the final category of actions is a summary of actionable items with budget that would be from the climate budget, or could be from the climate budget. And so here we see items that are within CPED, specifically long-range planning. And these could be bundled into 1.5 FTE associate planner for 2 years. That would be equal to $134,000. And so this cost is inclusive of research, scoping, regional group participation, and implementation of these items. Some of the items may be implemented through public outreach, new incentive programs, or through the docketing process. But that 0.5 FTE would enable all of the following action items to move forward. And so coordinated planning, middle density housing, EV integration, and so forth. The next item in the action and budget list is the Public Works W1.1 municipal energy efficiency item, which through speaking with Public Works would require a consultant for evaluation at $15,000. The next item is for the zero emission fleets, item T310, which at a budget of $270,000 would provide 20 charging stations and 35 vehicles. This is paired with a CIP request that is currently in at $170,000. If both were approved, it would provide 35 charging stations and 35 vehicles. And the last item was not included in the climate mitigation plan, but is a resource to coordinate the implementation on the Thurston County level, is a 1 FTE climate program coordinator. And so this is currently housed in the commissioner's office. For 2021, that full budget was $121,000 with an increase in 2022 to $125,000. And this would be an ongoing position. So those are the categories at this time. Are there any questions about the spending overview?
Yes.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I'm not in a hurry, I just wanted to let it be known that I had a question, that's all.
Is this a good time, Jenica, for those questions?
Sure.
Or do you have
If
more
we
to
have
cover?
time permitting.
Do you have more to cover in what you're going to present to us?
No, that's the overview for the spending report.
Go ahead, Commissioner Edwards, then.
You said 20 charging stations and 35 vehicles for $170,000. I'm just kind of trying to figure that out.
So for that item, there is a capital improvement plan request in, I believe, for $170,000 for charging stations, and there was a gap left. And so then there's the $270,000 that is referenced in this document, and that would provide the 20 charging stations and 35 vehicles. If both the capital improvement plan request for 170 and the 270 are both approved, it would provide 35 charging stations and 35 vehicles.
But when you say 35, how do you buy 35 vehicles for that price?
It will be the combined 270 plus 170.
Yeah, but even so, they cost more than that, don't they? For that many of them?
When I checked in with the staff and central services, that was the budget that was provided.
Okay. That sounds pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
I thought vehicles cost more than that, but.
I think the charging stations, we just replaced the charging stations here. I think they were not significant. I think the vehicles will be most of the cost of the, $540,000.
Okay, I guess more to come, huh?
Yeah, this is just the introduction of this. At this point, we're not requesting any direction from the board and approval. If you have any questions, obviously today, anytime, and there's some perhaps budget decisions during your budget deliberations you may consider. And we want to make sure that this information is presented to you ahead of that conversation.
Commissioner Mejia?
I need to review this and probably I'll have questions next time.
Yeah, we can do, I'm kind of in the same position. I just preliminarily, it looks like exactly what we needed. So I appreciate the way this is presented, and I'll take a look at it and we'll follow up. Board can follow up at later time with questions once we've had a chance to digest it a little bit. Thank you, Jenica.
Just one clarification on your proposal on the last page on item 7, the climate program coordinator. That's a proposal for the board to consider establishing that position in the 2022-2023 biennial. So we don't have a current position in place. Just a clarification on that.
Right. Okay. Let's go then to the state plastic bag ban item.
Yeah, hopefully this will be a short conversation. Let me frame the issue. In 2020, the state legislature passed a resolution law that will put a ban on the single use of plastic carryout bags in the entire state. And that has been supposed to be implemented on January 1st, 2021. And the whole pandemic came, and the issues with supply chains was an issue. So the governor delayed that, and the implementation at this point will be October 1st, 2021. It's coming up. So Jeff is going to walk you through this particular mandate and how that aligns to resolution Ordinance 14934, the county passed, where the county implemented a plastic bag ban, I don't know, maybe what, 8 years ago, is that thereabouts? Jeff?
Good morning. It's still morning. Good morning, commissioners. Yeah, that's correct. That in September of 2013, the Board of County Commissioners actually enacted a bag ban for single-use plastic carryout bags. That was for all the unincorporated areas of the county. And as Ramiro mentioned, in the 2020 legislative session, the legislature passed a statewide ban also for single-use plastic carryout bags. The original implementation date was supposed to be January 1st of 2021, but due to supply chain issues, to be able to get enough bags to supply to the stores, they were not able to do that. So the governor actually delayed that implementation and until July 13th, when he rescinded his delay. And now the new statewide plastic bag ban will be enacted on October 1st. And so what that does, basically, it's going to, like our current rule, it will prohibit single-use plastic carryout bags in all retail and grocery stores, restaurants, takeout establishments, festivals, and markets. It requires an 8-cent charge for all recycled content paper carryout bags and reusable carryout bags made of film plastic. It requires a minimum of 40% post-consumer recycled content for the paper bags, and they have to meet composting requirements. It requires that a reusable bag made of plastic film has at least 20% post-consumer recycled content, and it needs to be at least 2.25 mils in thickness. So it's a thick reusable bag. If it's plastic, that has to have a minimum lifetime of at least 125 uses. It requires that the paper and plastic bags be labeled on the outside that shows that the recycled content is marked on those. Now, there's a couple things the ban does not apply to food banks, food assistance programs. However, they're still being encouraged to reduce their use of those. And additionally, similarly to our current rule, is the fee is not collected from anyone using a voucher or electronic benefits card issued under the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, the Women and Infants and Children program, temporary assistance for needy families, or other food assistance programs. So they are not charged if they're purchasing their groceries or through that program. Several of the exceptions to the single-use plastic bag ban include those used inside stores, such as to purchase bulk items, produce bags for frozen food, for bagging meats and fish, like flowers, potted plants, bakery goods, and prescription drugs. So those are specifically excluded from the ban. And additionally, other bags that are also exempt are newspaper bags, door hanger bags, dry cleaning bags, and bags that are sold in bulk. So for example, if you're going to buy plastic bags for your trash at home, those are excluded. So food storage, garbage, Ziploc bags, and pet waste bags. So really, the state rule is very similar to the county rule. There's a couple particularly key differences that we want to point out. The first is that the state's requiring an 8-cent charge for the reusable bags purchased by the consumer, where ours is a 5-cent charge, so it's a little bit more restrictive and more expensive. The state program additionally allows for the sale of that 2.25 mil reusable plastic bag, also an 8-cent charge, whereas we did not have that option. The paper bag is the only option in the county rule. However, I do want to note that in the state rule, beginning on January 1st, 2026, that cost for the plastic bag goes from 8 cents to 12 cents. So as you can see, they're really trying to push away from the plastic by making that fee more expensive. So one of the most important things to note is that the state rule totally supersedes the Thurston County rule and all local jurisdictional rules. So one of the things that we did is we requested legal counsel's review of the state rule to determine whether the board would need to actually rescind the county's current bag ban rule. And the guidance received from legal was that while the board could choose to rescind the ordinance, it was not necessary to do so. And one of the potential benefits to not doing so and leaving it on the books is that for some reason the state rule were to be thrown out or tossed out in court or whatever, then we would still have a rule in place for ourselves. So the division plans to do education and outreach on this new bag ban, particularly to help reduce any confusion about the newly implemented program. And again, really the push here is to get people to bring their reusable bags into the store instead of relying on getting a bag, whether it's paper or plastic, getting a bag in the store. So we'll be doing an additional education outreach along that line. And we want to answer any questions you might have.
Questions, Commissioner Mejia?
I have a bunch of reusable bags at home and then I always forget to take them to the store. But I mean, so it seems like there really isn't an action for us to take. It seems like we have really no choice but to follow the state's
State law.
the state law. So there really is no action step for us. That's basically what I'm
No, this is just informational. I think the only question will be whether you want to rescind the ordinance the county passed related to this matter. But as Jeff stated, there's some pros and cons of taking that action. That's really the only potential action the board may take, but it's a state law. So.
Commissioner Edwards?
I'm fine with doing it. Information is good enough for me. I don't think we need to do any more.
Okay.
We
very
waste our
good.
time on enough bureaucratic stuff.
All right, Jeff, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's go to item 3, dangerous dog designation follow-up.
Yeah, this is a carryover from last week's meeting. Commissioners, I think you requested some time to review the information provided to you. I also included the applicable Thurston County code related to designated dangerous dogs or potential dangerous dogs. You wanted to bring this matter back. I have asked Elizabeth to be part of this conversation, and I believe she has a perspective to provide to the board related to this issue. Elizabeth? Elizabeth, are you there? There she is.
Go ahead, Elizabeth. You're muted.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I have had an opportunity to review this complaint about a particular dog, and I had an opportunity to listen to your deliberations last week about, and the fundamental question before you, in my opinion, is under TCC 910-070, paragraph 3. And this is the paragraph that says, you do not have authority to declare a dog potentially dangerous or dangerous if the pet animal that was hurt was on the property of the dog that attacked that animal. Now the information, so the question is, did Bella go to the neighbor's property where the pit bull was? And is that where the attack occurred? If you can say yes, then you can't declare the dog dangerous, potentially dangerous. the information you have before you, from what I can tell, is a little unclear. And so then the question becomes, do you have enough information to make a decision at this time? So it depends on how you evaluate the information before you. And the facts appear to suggest that the incident occurred on the property of the pit bull, but there's no definitive, the owner of Bella did not see that. We only have secondhand information from the owner that suggests Bella was over there. But it could be, I looked at the Google map, and these parcels are not immediately adjacent to each other. They're separated by 1 or 2 parcels. And there's also a street. So potentially this could have occurred anywhere between Bella's property and the pit bull's property.
Commissioner Mejia, anything?
No. No question.
Commissioner Edwards?
No, it looks like it's as clear as mud, and it doesn't look like there's anything we can do about it.
I'm just looking through this. I had thought that it was more clear than what you're describing, Elizabeth, that the altercation happened on the pit bull's property, but yeah, I'm trying to see why I drew that conclusion.
There are 2 statements by the property owner. She said that when the pit bull's owner came over to the house looking for Bella, he said that the dog was tied up at the time. Then the property owner, Bella's owner called the property owner to get more information, and he acknowledged that the dog was not tied up, but was just running around with the other pit bull.
Does this property have a fence around it? I mean, when it says running around, like I guess maybe I jumped to the conclusion that it was a fenced property. Otherwise you wouldn't have a pit bull running around like that.
That's a question. I don't know. I haven't been out to the site to take in that information. I mean, you could, if you wanted to get the facts clear, you could ask for more information from both the property owner and the owner of Bella.
Well, that might be a good idea, because I think legally that's the issue. I mean, it's clear as a bell if you have that piece of information. You cannot find the dog dangerous if this happened on the pit bull's property. You absolutely would and should if it didn't. But if that's not clear, then that's kind of, I guess, a missing piece of information that we should maybe ask for any further information. I thought it was, I didn't realize that was in doubt. I guess I just jumped to that conclusion because mainly because the property owner asserted that, and the complainant didn't dispute it or argue about that point. It didn't seem like, but doesn't mean that person knows, or that anybody knows. I guess. I mean, it's possible nobody knows. Although the dog would have been found. I can't remember. Was the dog killed at the scene, or was the dog limping back home and died later?
The dog is still alive.
It was limping back home and died on the owner's property. Yeah.
Well, there's probably blood, and there's probably some evidence of where it happened, I'm guessing, but I don't know. Does the board want to then send a letter requesting additional input, or do you guys have an opinion about how this should be decided?
I mean, from the letter of the owner, it sounded like it was on the pit bull's like property, right? And so I see that, you know, option 3D just kind of really, I think that's really gonna answer the question if it was on the property or not. So I guess more information would be helpful.
I guess, as a courtesy, we ought to at least let the deceased dog's owner know that under our code, and submit that portion of the code to them and say, that it's not clear, but it looks like this incident took place on the offending dog's property. And consequently, there's no action that we can take at this time unless you have additional facts, and then see what comes of it.
Yeah, Katie just responded that there is no fences on those properties.
No fences?
No.
I mean, the letter from the complainant says when she talked to the pit bull's owner, he said their dog was running around the yard and not tied up. So, and then she never really takes issue with that statement. Maybe not understanding that there was legal significance to that, but I mean, clearly the pit bull owner is asserting that it's on their property, or it wouldn't be characterized in that way, that he's running around the yard. I mean, but that's just his assertion, and we're getting that through hearsay of the complainant, petitioner, whatever you want to call her.
Right now, the complainant is listening to this conversation, is available to have a conversation on the phone if you like. But it's over 12, so whatever you'd like to do.
I don't think I can go down that road myself. I have to be at a speaking engagement here in just a few minutes across town. So if we're going to take any information from this person, we need to do it at a different meeting.
Okay, maybe we can talk to the complainant and see if they can provide additional information. Now we'll bring this item for next week.
Is that okay with the board?
Because I think they're listening to this conversation, and maybe they can provide additional information that may address the comments.
Sounds like extenuating circumstances.
Yeah, so I know we'll bring that for next week.
Okay.
And Ramiro, okay, thank you. And I apologize to the dog owner that this got delayed, but we just kind of ran out of time here, and there's some missing information. Do we need to address the last two items on the agenda, Ramiro? I really need to. I can excuse myself, and the board can go without me.
If you know the blank decision is, give me a minute, and I can walk you through quickly on the slides, if you don't mind.
Okay.
So on the Blake decision last week, I provided information related to the distribution of the administrator of the courts. One of the major issues the board had related to that, it was the distribution to the cities and towns. Since they have revised that distribution, and they do not have any distribution at this point to cities and towns. So the issue the board had mainly has disappeared. So at this point, I did not send the letter you instructed me to send. So, and we're still working on the contract. There's some issues related to the contract.
Elizabeth has the lead on that.
And we'll bring that matter next week with more details related to as to how we're gonna be addressing the issues at least staff have found on the contract. That's number one. So that's the Blake decision. Related to, I already addressed the Veterans Advisory Board meetings, attaches for you the updated information. I'll address that this afternoon. Mr. Petty was correct. It was an outdated information on the website, and since we have updated that information. The last item that I'd like to bring to your attention is not included specifically on the agenda, but I have attached a letter for you. And this is related to a new piece of legislation that we received where the county has been awarded $1,140,606. And this is related to a one-time cost to address some of the impacts of the law enforcement and criminal justice legislation that passed in 2020, 2021. This letter is to us, the clerk, the sheriff, superior court, district court, prosecutor, attorneys, public defense, and pretrial services to look at the pieces of legislation and determine what impacts, financial impacts, those pieces of legislation have occurred on their offices. And in this letter outlines the September 17th is the deadline as to when they submit in Cuesta for you to consider during the budget process. So this is
One-time costs.
one-time cost that is not an ongoing, it's at $1.1 million. So I will send this letter with e-signature with your permission, and then you will see some of the requests during the budget process.
Okay.
And that's it.
Sounds like the meeting is over. I don't know if
Okay.
Chair, oh, I didn't know the chair was still there. You're off.
I'm still here. We're adjourned. Thank you very much. See you guys at 2.